A great getting rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won.
Some of the most extraordinary music ever recorded never found its audience in time. The artists behind it died unknown, overlooked, or simply forgotten, their recordings gathering dust for decades. These are 10 forgotten musicians the world finally discovered after they were gone. Number 10. Sixto Rodriguez.
Sit and hope, don't sit and pine if you've been hurt.
A demolition worker in Detroit spent his days swinging a sledgehammer and his nights performing in near-empty bars. His two albums, Cold Fact in 1970 and Coming from Reality in 1971, sold almost nothing in the United States. His label dropped him without ceremony, and he disappeared back into the working-class neighborhoods of Detroit, completely unaware of what had happened on the other side of the world.
Now assumes relaxed positions and prostitutes your loss where you torture.
In South Africa, those same two albums had quietly become a cultural phenomenon. Bootleg copies circulated through the anti-apartheid movement, and Rodriguez was considered bigger than the Rolling Stones. Fans assumed he had died by suicide on stage. A group of South African music enthusiasts tracked him down in the late 1990s, and he toured to sold-out arenas in Cape Town and Johannesburg. The 2012 documentary Searching for Sugar Man won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature, introducing millions of Americans to a man who had lived among them in total anonymity for 40 years. Rodriguez passed away in August 2023, finally celebrated in the country that had ignored him longest.
You know I'd leave you, and I'd never left behind, 'cause I was born for the purpose.
Number 9. Connie Converse.
And in the spring its leaves are green and blossoms all aflame.
In 1954, more than a decade before the folk revival made introspective singer-songwriters fashionable, a young woman in New York City sat alone with a guitar and a reel-to-reel recorder. She captured some of the most intimate, quietly devastating songs ever committed to tape, songs that anticipated Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan by years. No label touched them, no audience ever heard them.
Not wanting in womanly wile, she covered her bridegroom with buckles and smiles.
In August 1974, at age 50, she wrote farewell letters to friends and family, loaded her Volkswagen Beetle, and drove away. She was never seen or heard from again. Her recordings sat in a box for decades until a friend, Gene Ditch, preserved them carefully. In 2009, the album How Sad, How Lovely was released on Music Group Records, and critics responded with something close to astonishment. The New York Times and The Guardian both ran major features asking how music this profound had remained hidden for 50 years. The question remains unanswered, and so does her disappearance.
The first little stars.
Number 8. Eva Cassidy.
See, there once was a boy.
By the time she was 30, she had already mastered jazz, blues, gospel, folk, and pop, moving between them with an effortlessness that left fellow musicians in Washington, D.C. speechless. She performed in small clubs and restaurants, released modest local recordings, and built a devoted but geographically small following. In November 1996, she died of melanoma at age 33, virtually unknown outside her home city.
I love you, each memory.
4 years later, BBC Radio 2 presenter Terry Wogan played her version of Over the Rainbow on air and was visibly moved while introducing it. The switchboard lit up immediately. Her posthumous compilation Songbird climbed to number 1 on the UK albums chart in 2001 and remained there for weeks, eventually selling over 10 million copies worldwide. Artists including Norah Jones and Diana Krall have cited her phrasing as deeply influential. Her voice, once heard in a small Maryland club by a handful of regulars, eventually reached every corner of the world, just too late for her to know it.
Have pity on those whose chances of love.
Number 7. Nick Drake.
Thing that's past. Do you find things are moving?
Between 1969 and 1972, he recorded 3 albums that his label, Island Records, could not sell. 5 Leaves Left, Brighter Later, and Pink Moon each arrived and vanished, selling only a few thousand copies combined. He was crippled by depression, refused to perform live, and gave virtually no interviews. In November 1974, he died of an antidepressant overdose at age 26 at his parents' home in Warwickshire, England.
What is true seems so sad for you.
For 25 years, his music lived only in the collections of devoted, almost secretive fans. Then, in 1999, a Volkswagen television commercial used Pink Moon as its soundtrack, and something remarkable happened. Sales of his back catalog surged overnight. Island Records reissued all 3 albums, and critics who had been too young to hear them originally responded with unanimous reverence. Peter Gabriel, Paul Weller, and Robert Smith of The Cure have all named him as a foundational influence. Pink Moon, the album that originally sold roughly 5,000 copies, is now considered one of the most essential recordings of the 20th century. Number 6. Judee Sill.
See, I gotta write 'em up 'cause the pearl just around the bend.
David Geffen signed her as the very first artist to his newly formed Asylum Records in 1971, a distinction that should have launched a celebrated career. Her debut album, Judee Sill, drew comparisons to Bach and Laura Nyro, and her follow-up, Heart Food in 1973, pushed her orchestral folk songwriting even further. Critics praised both records quietly. The public ignored them almost completely.
Sweet communion of a kiss.
A heroine, addiction that had begun in her turbulent childhood tightened its grip, and she died of an overdose in November 1979 at age 35, largely forgotten even within the industry that had once championed her. Rhino Records and Water Records issued careful reissues of her catalog in 2005 and 2006, and a new generation of listeners encountered her baroque, spiritually intricate sound for the first time. Journalists began calling her one of the most significant, overlooked figures in American folk music. Artists including Joanna Newsom and Fleet Foxes have pointed directly to her harmonic language as an early blueprint for what they would later build.
Sifting through the gray.
Before we continue, which of these stories surprised you most? Did you grow up hearing any of these names? Or are they completely new to you? Drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you are watching from. Number 5. Bobby Fuller. His recording of I Fought the Law reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1966, a driving, irresistible rock and roll record that felt like it belonged on every jukebox in America. The Bobby Fuller Four were poised. Then, in July 1966, just months after the song peaked, Fuller was found dead in his car outside his Hollywood apartment at age 23. The official ruling was suicide, but the evidence pointed in multiple directions, and the Los Angeles Police Department never produced a satisfying explanation. The Clash covered I Fought the Law in 1979, introducing it to an entirely new generation, but Fuller himself remained a footnote. In the 1990s, true crime retrospectives and rock history publications began revisiting his case seriously. Delphi Records issued recompilations of his full catalog, and writers began placing him alongside Buddy Holly and Eddie Cochran as one of early rock and roll's most tragic losses. The mystery of his death brought renewed attention to the music, and listeners who came looking for answers stayed for the songs.
I fought the law and the law won.
Number 4. Shuggie Otis.
When they were fussing and fighting, and the next day we're doing that.
The Rolling Stones called him and offered him a position as their guitarist in 1970. He was 18 years old and turned them down, preferring instead to pursue his own musical vision. The son of legendary bandleader Johnny Otis, he had already been performing professionally for years, and he had something more ambitious in mind than joining someone else's band. That vision produced Inspiration Information in 1974, a psychedelic soul and funk album he wrote, performed, and largely produced himself, layering synthesizers and dreamlike arrangements years before anyone else was thinking that way. It sold almost nothing.
I'm here, so
Otis retreated from the music industry entirely and spent decades in near-total obscurity, living modestly while the world forgot he existed. In April 2013, Epic and Legacy Records issued a deluxe reissue of Inspiration Information, and the critical reception was staggering. Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, and The Guardian all ran major retrospectives. Artists including Erykah Badu and Questlove had long cited the album privately, and suddenly the world caught up with what they already knew. Number 3. Karen Dalton.
Just a little bit of rain, just a little bit.
In his memoir, Chronicles Volume 1, published in 2004, Bob Dylan wrote about her with unmistakable reverence, calling her his favorite singer in the village folk scene of the early 1960s. She had a voice that sounded like Billie Holiday filtered through the high lonesome of Appalachian music, and she sang with a weight that left audiences motionless. Despite Dylan's admiration, her two albums, It's So Hard to Tell Who's Going to Love You the Best in 1969 and In My Own Time in 1971, reached almost no one. She died of AIDS-related illness in March 1993 at age 55, unknown to nearly everyone outside a small circle of devoted folk music devotees. Light in the Attic Records reissued both of her albums between 2006 and 2008, and the response was immediate. Nick Cave, Angel Olsen, and Devendra Banhart all spoke publicly about her influence. A documentary, Karen Dalton, In My Own Time, was released in 2020 and introduced her haunting sound to audiences who found it impossible to believe she had ever been forgotten.
To remember all the good times.
Number 2. Bobbie Gentry.
Granddaddy long leg climbing on the screen. Better watch you gonna squash it flat.
3 Grammy Awards in 1968. A number 1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 with Ode to Billie Joe in the summer of 1967. She was one of the first female country artists to write and produce her own material, and her albums The Delta Suite in 1968 and Fancy in 1970 were ambitious, fully realized artistic statements that went largely unrecognized at the time. Then, around 1980, she simply stopped. No farewell announcement, no press conference, no final album.
Joe never had a lick of sense. Pass the biscuits, please.
She retreated completely from public life and has not given a single interview or made a single public appearance in over 4 decades. Capitol Records launched a careful reissue campaign for her catalog, and a BBC4 documentary in 2014 reframed her overlooked albums as visionary works of Southern Gothic storytelling. Critics who revisited The Delta Suite called it one of the most underappreciated American records of the late 1960s. She remains alive somewhere, entirely unreachable, while her reputation grows larger with every passing year.
Black rubber raincoat, right through a letter on pen. I know never had it in a tree where the house broke.
Number 1. Jim Sullivan.
He'll ever come again a different way. Maybe he is coming while I was away.
In 1969, a young folk rock singer from Los Angeles pressed a small-run album called UFO on the Tiny Money label. The songs were strange and quietly beautiful, filled with images of open highways, sudden disappearances, and visitors from unknown places. Almost no copies sold. Almost no one heard it.
There I wanna go. Where it's at.
In March 1975, Sullivan was driving through New Mexico when he vanished. His car was found abandoned near Santa Rosa. His belongings were inside. He was never seen again, and the case remains officially unsolved. The lyrics of UFO, in retrospect, read like something between a premonition and a farewell. Light in the Attic Records reissued the album in 2010, and the story spread quickly through music publications including Pitchfork, NPR Music, and The Guardian.
Here is something happening that isn't too clear, just a little different than a previous year.
Listeners came for the mystery and discovered music of genuine, unhurried beauty waiting for them. Jim Sullivan made one album, disappeared into the desert, and left behind something that feels more alive with every passing year.